Have you ever felt your heart race the moment their name appears again, after days, weeks, maybe even months of silence? And in that single moment, everything inside you shifts. The pain fades, the memories soften, the questions disappear, and one powerful thought takes over your mind. Maybe this is love coming back, but what if that feeling is lying to you? What if that return you've been waiting for is not what you think it is? Stay with me till the end, because if you truly understand this, you will protect your heart in a way you never have before. And you will never fall into the same emotional trap again. Because the truth is, when someone comes back after breaking you, it doesn't automatically mean they chose you. It doesn't mean they realized your worth. And it definitely doesn't mean they're ready to love you the way you deserve. Yet your heart wants to believe it does. You remember the silence. The long nights where your mind kept replaying every conversation, trying to understand what went wrong. You remember staring at your phone, hoping for a message that never came. You remember how it felt to be slowly ignored, slowly replaced, slowly forgotten. And then suddenly, they return. No warning, no explanation, no real accountability, just a message, a simple, "Hey," or "I've been thinking about you." And somehow, that small effort feels like everything. Why? Because your heart was starving for closure. It was starving for reassurance. It was starving for something to prove that what you felt was real. And when they show up again, even in the smallest way, it feels like confirmation, like validation, like the story isn't over yet. But this is where most people make the biggest mistake of their lives. They confuse presence with intention. Just because someone comes back doesn't mean they came back for you. Read that again in your mind. Just because someone reappears in your life doesn't mean they returned with love. Sometimes they return because they feel something slipping away. Not love, but control. Not connection, but familiarity. Not commitment, but access. And your emotions don't see that immediately. Because emotions are not logical. Emotions are driven by memory, by attachment, by the feeling of what once was, not by the reality of what is. So when they come back, your mind starts rewriting the past. It highlights the good moments, the laughter, the rare times they made you feel special. It pushes away the confusion, the inconsistency, the emotional distance that once made you question your own worth. And suddenly, the person who hurt you starts to feel like the person who can heal you. That's the illusion. That's the trap. You begin to think, if they came back, it must mean something. But not every return has meaning. Some returns are just unfinished patterns repeating themselves. Think about it. If someone truly understood your value, would they have walked away so easily in the first place? If they genuinely cared about your feelings, would they have left you questioning everything? If it was really love, would it feel this unstable, this uncertain, this one-sided? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are necessary. Because the pain you felt before didn't come from nowhere. It came from their actions, their absence, their inability to show up consistently. And now they return without addressing any of that. And your heart is ready to give them another chance as if nothing happened. Why? Because hope is powerful. Hope convinces you that this time will be different, that maybe they've changed, that maybe they've realized what they lost, that maybe this time they will finally give you the love you've been waiting for. But hope, without evidence, is dangerous. It keeps you emotionally invested in a situation that hasn't actually changed. And deep down, if you're honest with yourself, you already feel it. There's a small voice inside you that whispers, "Be careful," a quiet awareness that remembers the pain, even when your heart tries to forget it. But most people ignore that voice, because the idea of love returning out feels better than accepting the truth. And the truth is, not everyone who comes back to stay. Some people return just to see if they still can, to check if you're still there, to feel wanted again, to fill a temporary emptiness inside themselves. And once that feeling is satisfied, they disappear again, leaving you right back where you started, confused, drained, questioning your worth all over again. This is why you have to stop looking at their return as something romantic. You have to stop attaching meaning to their presence without understanding their intention, because if you don't, you will keep reopening the same wound, expecting a different result. And nothing changes until you see things clearly, because not every comeback is a love story. Some comebacks are just cycles repeating themselves until you finally decide to break them. Now let's go deeper, because if you don't understand what's really happening beneath the surface, you will keep misreading their actions and calling it something it's not. When distance begins to grow, something shifts inside an avoidant mind. While you were trying to hold things together, they were slowly creating space. Not because you lacked value, but because closeness started to feel overwhelming to them. Intimacy, for them, is not always comfort. Sometimes it feels like pressure, like losing control, like being seen too deeply. So they pull back, not loudly, not clearly, but gradually. Less effort, less emotion, less presence. And you feel it. You feel something slipping, but you don't fully understand why. Here's where the real pattern begins. When you are available, when you are reaching out, when you are trying to fix things, they feel safe to stay distant. Because in their mind, you're not going anywhere. Your energy is still there. Your attention is still focused on them. There's no urgency, no fear. But the moment you stop, everything changes. When your messages become shorter, when your effort fades, when you finally start choosing your own peace over chasing answers, something inside them gets triggered. Not love, fear. A sudden awareness that the connection they once had access to is no longer guaranteed. And that's when their behavior shifts. They reach out. They become warmer, more attentive, more present than before. And to you, it feels like growth. It feels like they finally understand. But what you're actually witnessing is a reaction, not a transformation. Because real change is consistent. It doesn't appear only when you are pulling away. It doesn't disappear when things feel stable again. It doesn't depend on your absence to exist. What they feel in that moment is not a deep emotional awakening. It's discomfort. It's the loss of certainty. It's the realization that they are no longer in control of the situation. You were their constant, their emotional anchor, the person who stayed, even when they gave the bare minimum. And when that constant begins to fade, their mind tries to restore it. So they come closer again, not because they're ready to build something solid, but because they're trying to bring things back to what they were. A place where they felt safe without giving too much. A place where they could have you without fully committing to you. And here's what makes this even more complicated. This is not always done with bad intentions. Sometimes they don't even realize what they're doing. It's not always planned. It's not always calculated. It's a learned pattern, a way of dealing with emotions they don't fully understand themselves. They crave connection, but they fear it at the same time. They want closeness, but when it gets too real, they step back. They don't want to lose you, but they also don't know how to hold you properly. And you become stuck in the middle of that conflict. You receive just enough attention to stay, but never enough to feel secure. Just enough effort to keep hope alive, but never enough to build something stable. This creates confusion. And confusion is powerful, because when something is unclear, your mind tries to fill in the gaps. It tries to make sense of mixed signals. It starts creating stories that justify their behavior. Maybe they're just scared. Maybe they need time. Maybe they do care, they just don't know how to show it. And while some of these thoughts may feel true, they don't change the reality of what you're experiencing. Because at the end of the day, what matters is not what they feel deep inside. What matters is what they consistently show you. And if someone only shows up when they feel you slipping away, that's not stability. That's a cycle. A cycle where your distance creates their closeness, and your closeness creates their distance. And without awareness, this pattern can go on for months, even years. Each time they return, it feels meaningful. It feels like progress. But in reality, it's just the same loop repeating itself in a different form. You move forward, they come back. You open up, they pull away. You try to understand it, they create more uncertainty. And slowly, without realizing it, you start losing yourself in the process because you begin to adjust your behavior to keep them. You become more patient than you should be, more understanding than necessary. You lower your expectations just to avoid losing them again. But the more you do that, the more the dynamic stays the same, because nothing is actually being rebuilt, only temporarily restored. And this is why their return feels so powerful. Because it comes right after absence, after emotional withdrawal, after silence. It feels like relief, like something missing has finally come back. But relief is not the same as love. Relief is the end of discomfort, not the beginning of something real. And if you don't recognize that difference, you will keep mistaking emotional reactions for genuine intention. You will keep seeing their comeback as a sign instead of seeing it as a pattern. And now it becomes even more personal. Because this is the part most people don't want to face. Not because it's complicated, but because it reveals something uncomfortable within. It's easy to analyze their behavior. It's easy to question their actions. But the real question is, why does it still affect you this deeply? Why does a simple message from them have the power to change your entire mood? Why does your mind instantly go back to them, even after everything you've already experienced? The answer is not just about them. It's about what your mind has created around them. You didn't just connect with a person, you built a story, a version of them that represents everything you wanted, everything you hoped for, everything you believed could happen if things finally worked out. And that version feels real, even if their actions never fully matched it. Your brain holds onto moments, small pieces of attention, short bursts of connection, times when they showed just enough to make you feel special. And those moments become powerful, not because they were consistent, but because they were rare. And rarity creates value in your mind. You begin to chase those moments, not consciously, but emotionally. You start associating them with something meaningful, something worth waiting for. And when they disappear, it doesn't just feel like you lost a person, it feels like you lost a possibility. That's why their return hits so deeply. It doesn't just bring them back, it brings back the idea of what could have been, the version of the future you once imagined, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, it's still possible. And this is where the trap tightens, because now you're not responding to who they are today. You're responding to who you believe they can become. You start filling in the gaps again, ignoring what didn't work before, minimizing what hurt you, telling yourself that this time will be different even when nothing has truly changed. And the cycle continues, not because you don't see it, but because a part of you doesn't want to let it go. This is not weakness. This is how the human mind works. When something is unpredictable, your brain becomes more focused on it. It tries harder to understand it, to solve it, to control it, and that creates attachment. Consistency feels safe, but inconsistency feels addictive because you never know what you're going to get, and that uncertainty keeps you emotionally invested. You start checking your phone more often, thinking about them more than you should, replaying conversations, searching for hidden meanings in simple words. All of this drains your energy, slowly, quietly, and the most dangerous part, you begin to lose connection with yourself. Your focus shifts outward. Your emotions become dependent on their actions. Your peace starts to rely on whether they show up or disappear, and without realizing it, you give away control over your own emotional state. You begin to accept less than you deserve, just to keep them close. You lower your standards, not because you don't know your worth, but because you're afraid of losing the chance that they might finally become the person you've been waiting for. But here's the truth that changes everything. You are not attached to them. You are attached to the feeling they created inside you and the meaning you gave to it. And once you understand that, something shifts. You start to see things more clearly. You realize that no matter how many times they return, it doesn't erase what already happened. It doesn't automatically create something stable. It doesn't guarantee a different outcome. Because patterns don't break with hope. They break with awareness. And right now, you're standing at a point where you can either continue the same emotional loop, or you can step back and see it for what it really is. Not a love story waiting to happen, but a pattern waiting to be recognized. Because until you see it clearly, you will keep responding the same way. You will keep opening the same door. You will keep expecting a different result. You will keep giving chances without receiving change. And every time it repeats, it takes a little more from you, your time, your energy, your emotional strength, until one day you look back and realize you weren't building something meaningful. You were just holding on to something that was never steady to begin with. And that realization is the beginning of your freedom. And this is where everything changes, not outside of you, but within you. Because once you start seeing the pattern clearly, you can no longer pretend you don't understand it. The illusion loses its power. The confusion begins to fade. And now a new question rises inside you. What are you going to do differently this time? Because awareness without action keeps you in the same place. You may understand everything logically, but if your response stays the same, the outcome will not change. This is the moment where most people hesitate, not because they are unsure, but because change requires letting go of something familiar. Even if that familiarity has been hurting you, you have to accept something that may feel uncomfortable at first. Not everyone who comes back deserves access to you again. Not everyone who reaches out has earned a place in your life. Presence alone is not proof of growth. Words alone are not evidence of change. Real change shows itself over time. It is steady. It is clear. It does not disappear when things feel calm. It does not rely on your distance to exist. It stands on its own, without conditions. So the next time they appear again, you don't respond the same way. You don't react from emotion. You don't let old feelings take control. You pause, you observe, you pay attention to what is actually different this time. Are their actions aligned with their words? Are they consistent, even when you are not pulling away? Are they taking responsibility for what happened before? Or is it the same pattern, just starting again in a softer way? These questions protect you. They bring clarity. They keep you grounded in reality instead of pulling you back into imagination. Because choosing yourself is not just a decision you make once. It is something you practice, especially when it feels hardest. Especially when emotions are strong. Especially when the past tries to convince you to repeat itself. You have to remind yourself you are not here to fix anyone. You are not here to teach someone how to value you. You are not here to wait until someone becomes ready. You are here to experience something real, something stable, something that does not require you to question your worth every time things go quiet. And if someone can only show up when they feel uncertain, they are not offering stability. They are responding to their own discomfort. You deserve more than that. You deserve clarity without confusion, effort without hesitation, presence without conditions. You deserve to feel secure, not anxious, to feel chosen, not temporary. But to receive that, you have to stop accepting less. You have to stop opening the door for the same energy that once drained you. You have to stop giving chances where there is no real evidence of growth. You have to stop believing that time alone changes people, when in reality only conscious effort does. And this is where your power lies, not in controlling what they do, but in deciding what you allow. You cannot control who comes back into your life, but you can control who stays. You can control how much access they have. You can control whether you repeat the same emotional cycle or break free from it completely. And breaking free does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become cold or distant. It means you become aware, you become intentional, you stop letting emotions override your self-respect. You begin to choose peace over temporary excitement, clarity over confusion, stability over intensity. Because intensity without consistency is not love. It is a distraction that feels powerful in the moment, but leaves you empty in the end. And deep down, you already know this. You've felt the highs. You've experienced the lows. You've seen how quickly things can shift, and you've felt the emotional cost of going through it again and again. So now you stand at a different level of understanding. This is not about them anymore. This is about you finally deciding that your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being are not something to be taken lightly. It's about realizing that you don't have to wait for someone to choose you, when you have the ability to choose yourself fully. And once you truly make that decision, something powerful happens. The cycle ends, not because they stop coming back, but because you stop responding the same way. Because now you see clearly, now you understand, and now you finally move forward without looking back.